Number 10. Kitty Pryde and Star-Lord. This is one of those relationships where there was really no reason for these two to be together. Really. It's just so random. Star-Lord is cosmic, Kitty is an X-Men. I'm not saying the X-Men never go to space, because they definitely do go to space a lot, but it seems like these two only got together because they happened to meet one another in space once, then they began a long distance relationship, from there things got more serious and eventually ended up with Kitty joining the Guardians, accepting Star-Lord's marriage proposal, but later deciding her and Peter just weren't meant to be because, well, he couldn't prioritize their relationship while also ruling Spartax. Which I get it, when you're ruling a world, it's probably hard to have a relationship, but I don't know, maybe like let your partner like help you with it? I don't know. Me trying to give relationship advice to superheroes. Number 9. Bishop and Deathbird. I mean, this was mostly just a weird relationship. What do these two characters have in common? Not much. Their relationship was pretty much constantly strained because they rarely ever agreed with anything, and also because Bishop is a hero and Deathbird is a villain, they would even fight against one another during the course of their relationship. Overall, it just seems odd that they tried so hard to make this work when it was obviously never going to. The one thing I will say that was cool that came out of these two being together is that there's an alternate reality where they actually stay together and they have a daughter, Aaliyah Bishop, who is pretty cool, unique, cosmic based, and overall is a badass character. So yeah, I like her. So there's a bit of a silver lining here, as with most weird, but not all weird couples. At least we got a silver lining, so that's nice. And friends, before we move on to our next spot, if you are loving this list, be sure to show it by clicking like, subscribing, commenting, doing all the things. Also, if you love X-Men as much as I love X-Men, we got a playlist for that, so check it out. Number 8. Cyclops and Emma Frost. So actually, over the course of working on this channel, I have come to love and respect the relationship between Cyclops and Emma. I think I actually, over time, have just come to love and respect Emma more as a character. It's like the more I read about her and get to know her, the more I love her. Remember way back when I started on this channel and I said I could only imagine Cyclops with Jean? Nah, those days are gone. I have changed since then. But what is weird about these two together is when Emma kind of cosplayed as Jean and then had an affair with Cyclops in his mind. That was a pretty strange moment in their relationship, made only more weird by Jean psychically walking in on them. Like, imagine walking in on your partner to find them cheating on you with someone who is dressed up just like you. That would be an experience, right? Especially if you walked in on them in their mind. It's a lot. Although I'd also be like, why are you in my mind? This is an invasion of my mind privacy. Number 7. Bloke and his unnamed boyfriend. Well, there are lots of people that come to mind when we first talk about Marvel's first gay relationships and intimate moments in the comics. The very first gay kiss, I believe, came actually in 2001, but it's a little disappointing. Bloke is a new member of the X-Force who just happens to be gay. We meet him first in issue 117 of X-Force, and in issue 118 we get to see him with his boyfriend. But in the same issue, he also ends up dead. So, making it pretty weird that this is where Marvel chose to introduce a gay couple. I guess for some this might be seen as kind of cool because there wasn't really any showboating with Bloke's sexual identity. He was gay, but then he didn't make a big deal out of it, and it wasn't made a big deal out of in the comic. But on the other hand, introducing a gay character only to kill him shortly after revealing that he's gay, that's kind of a weird choice. However, you do have to give credit to Peter Milligan for even putting this in the comic and then for continuously showcasing gay characters in his work. So this wouldn't be the last gay couple that we'd see in X-Force, and likely actually pave the way for making those more long-lasting characters and relationships in comics possible. So it's weird, but it's also not weird. You know what I mean? Number 6. Storm and Quicksilver. Say what? When did this happen? Or more importantly, where did this happen? This is a relationship that comes to us from the universe of Earth 295, also referred to as the Age of Apocalypse. Storm and Quicksilver might sound like the weirdest couple ever on paper, but you have to remember that both characters were different in this universe. Quicksilver was much less of a brat here, as in Age of Apocalypse he lost his sister quite early on, and this was also a much more apocalyptic type reality, which meant more was demanded of him. Storm was still her badass self though. I don't think there's a reality that exists where Storm is not a badass. Number 5. Rogue and Sentry. This one is only half of an X couple, but it's so bizarre I had to bring it up, so you're welcome. Back when Sentry was retconned into existence, it was also heavily implied that he was Rogue's first. And all because he was the only one who could touch her. I have so many questions. And I also feel like we need to stop putting Rogue in relationships with people simply because they can touch her. Physical intimacy does not a relationship make. I know that it's probably been hard for Rogue not being able to touch those that she loves, but that shouldn't mean that she falls in love with someone just because she can touch them and they can touch her, right? Which is definitely what is implied happened here when the subject is brought up during Sentry's funeral and she runs off in tears. Poor Rogue. For so many reasons, poor Rogue. Number 4, Husk and Angel. Husk and Angel are a couple that I have a lot of feelings about. The weirdest part of this relationship that most people point to is the age difference and the difference in experience between the two. Warren is a full-on adult and one of the original X-Men members. In other words, he's older. Whereas Husk is a teenager. I think she was like just 19 or 18, so technically an adult but still pretty young. Still a teenager, so like an adult but a teenager. Young adult. There's also the fact that Husk was this weird rebound for Angel where he claimed he was going to love her forever, but it didn't really last past Chuck Austin's run and it's never really come up since, I don't think. He had just gotten out of a lengthy relationship with Betsy Braddock, who was going by PSYLOCKE at the time. It was just an awkward relationship, and if you don't believe me, take a look at the time Husk and Angel made up after an argument by getting intimate in the sky above Paige's mom and the X-Men. Yikes. That was a thing that happened. Number 3, STACY-X and Angel. And if you thought Paige and Warren were weird, I have one that's even a little bit weirder perhaps. STACY-X is a mutant who can affect the way you feel, making you nauseous, dizzy, or even really good, using pheromones. She worked for a time at a brothel using her mutant powers. That brothel got attacked by an anti-mutant group and burnt to the ground, so STACY-X reluctantly at first decided to join up with the X-Men, who would help to confront the group that targeted her workplace. She ended up developing a pretty epic crush on Angel, to the point that although she knew he was already taken, she sent him a video of her jumping rope naked. This never really led to a full-on relationship, but it's so wild I had to include it. Also, apparently this is a thing that people do. People on Twitter told me this is a thing that people do. I'm not sure if I fully believe it, but apparently it happens. Also, I love STACY-X, but she is so weird. Like, who sends someone a video of them jumping rope naked? This is a real thing? This is a real thing? What's happening with the world? What are we doing with our lives? STACY-X must have some amazing inner confidence and self-esteem, and anyone that's done that to send those videos. I love that. I love that confidence, I will say. Love yourself, love your body, jump rope naked. I don't know. What are the takeaways from this list? Number 2, Madeline Pryor and Cyclops. I mean, I have to talk about this one. I have to talk about it. I don't have a choice. Madeline Pryor is the clone of Jean Grey created by Mr. Sinister so that he could engineer the perfect mutant offspring, or just the perfect mutant if you will, after Jean's apparent death. Cyclops would meet Maddie and fall in love with her because, well, she reminded him of Jean, probably, although for some reason no one ever thought this was super suspicious or weird that she was a one-for-one copy of Jean. Just a coincidence, they thought. Nothing to worry about, they thought. Well, turns out it was something to worry about when Jean Grey reappeared after Scott and Maddie had their first child together and were married, and Cyclops decided to leave his family to go adventuring with his fellow mutants once more. This ended up driving Maddie crazy, unlocking her true psionic potential and causing her to make a deal with demons. Because that's what happens when someone leaves you. She would go on to have an affair with Scott's brother Havoc and become a frightening mutant-based supervillain. So, not your typical fairy tale ending for these two. Number 1, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. And if you want to get into more awful stuff from the universe from whence this relationship came, be sure to check out Worst Things from the Marvel Ultimate Universe. That's a series of videos we did, and yeah, there's a lot of stuff that happened. I got a lot more things to share with you. Yes, on the Earth of 1610, also known as the Ultimate Reality, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver were a couple. And yes, they were still brother and sister. And it could be possible in this reality that Wolverine, who saw them getting intimate together, was even their father. It was probably still Magneto though, but it definitely doesn't make any of this better. It doesn't make it better. I mean, I don't know what you could do to make this relationship better. Either just don't have it happen at all, or have these two not be brother and sister. Or at least make it so they didn't know that they were brother and sister and this was some kind of awful, twisted mistake. That might help, but no, they knew. They were into it. People joked about it, and then it was confirmed as being a thing in the Ultimate Comics. On behalf of 1610, I'm very sorry about that. Number 10. Rogue and Iceman. One of the relationships that just didn't seem to work for many readers was the forced comic book relationship between Rogue and Iceman, which seemed to be inspired by the Fox X-Men films where the two were together. I'll admit that watching the movies I personally did not mind it, but of course in my heart of hearts Rogue and Gambit will always win out the day when it comes to both Rogue and Gambit's one true love and romance being each other. So it was very strange when the comics came to echo the films by trying to make Rogue and Iceman a thing. Because while in the movies Gambit might not be around to steal Rogue's heart, in the comics he still very much existed. Like, a lot. But instead it seemed that the Ultimate Universe had other plans that more followed in line with the Fox film franchise shifts. After absorbing Gambit's powers and killing him, she ended up being able to touch people without hurting them, and so Rogue decided to touch Bobby. Because I guess that's what you do. Number 9. Richter and Wolfsbane. So admittedly these two weren't really so much a problem together, it was more when they had split up and then Richter was with his close friend and recent lover Shatterstar that things got kinda weird. Although they also had a kind of weirdness that was really well written and allowed us to tackle a bunch of different real world issues within the world of the X Factor series. So it was a good kind of weird really. It was a good kind of weird, but it was still weird. Reign intended to rejoin X Factor after leaving the X-Men and X-Force behind, only to find out that Richter is now with Shatterstar. And to be clear, I don't think Reign actually wanted to leave the X-Force, more she kinda got like kicked out of the X-Force. Sad. Reign returning was immensely offended by Richter having moved on, and by his gay relationship with Shatterstar. Reign actually claims that the child that she's pregnant with is Richter's, hoping to undo his gayness and win him back. The child was not Richter's of course, but was actually Harim Ari's, who had given up his life to save both Reign's and the life of their child. Eventually Richter finds out the truth about this, but in an amazing turn of events decides to still support Reign, despite the fact that she lied to him. And the two actually end up having a great heart-to-heart about just everything that's happened between them. Reign would even later team up with Shatterstar to defeat a demon following this ordeal. Like I said, it's weird, but it's good weird. Cause I also love that like part of the resolution is like, let's team up together and fight a demon. Yeah, that's bonding. Me and my ex's partner. I think it's so cute. Two exes coming together to be friends. Yes. Number 8. Everyone? Everyone in a relationship with everyone. Welcome to Krakoa. A more unconventional, I suppose, kind of weirdness is going on right now in Krakoa that has got a lot of people talking. People are talking about this all the time in comments online. They're like, what is going on? With this melting pot of all the X-Men and mutant history being mixed together, it seems like all relationships are kind of existing at once in a way on Krakoa right now. Relationships are not as clearly defined here. Many characters seem to be weaving in and out of multiple relationships almost seamlessly, as though we are kind of welcoming in an age of polyamory, which I guess makes sense considering one of the guiding laws or principles on Krakoa is to make more mutants. How do you do that? Well, when a mutant and another mutant fall in love. An example of this is what we are seeing in the summer house, where everyone has their own room, but you may have noticed that Wolverine is also bunkering down with the Summers. Jean's room in the house is actually situated between both Wolverine and Cyclops's, and both Logan and Scott also seem to be getting along better than ever, as though the love triangle has evolved to some kind of throuple, which I'm super into, I gotta be honest. But yeah, you should definitely check out, you gotta check out these blueprints, because you can see it. It's like Jean and then like Wolverine and Cyclops on either end of her rooms. And of course this is only one of many different examples that are out there in the comics right now. I personally find it refreshing to see these types of less mainstream but very much real world sorts of relationships getting some love in literature, and especially with very mainstream publishers like Marvel, because yeah, I feel like we don't see that as often. So is it weird really, or is it just great? I want to say it's just great. That's my opinion. But you can let me know your opinion in the comments, because that's also, I like other people's opinions, whether or not they match my own. Let's all share opinions and be friends. You know what I mean? Number 7. PYRO and Jean Grey. In issue 9 of Marauders, this ship happens between St. John Allardyce's PYRO and Jean Grey's Marvel Girl. Of course, no need to panic about how or why this happened, as in actuality, it's not real. I'm not sure if it was PYRO himself who came up with the idea of Jean and him being shipped in this telepathic illusion, or if it was Emma, but I feel like since Emma Frost's the one creating it for Yellow Jacket with the help of the Stepford Cuckoos, it's likely that she is the one who decided to ship the two together. I also see her being like, who do I want to ship Pyro with? Jean, because I hate Jean. No, I don't know. They love each other now. They hate each other. I don't know what's going on. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list as much as I am loving bringing it to you, please be sure to reciprocate the love by giving this video a thumbs up. And I'm sending love back out to you right now, so thank you for doing that. Number 6. Cypher and Bay. Technically both of these two are mutants, but their relationship developed kind of suddenly, which is what makes it so weird and also so great. Once again though, this is another kind of charming and endearing weird relationship. Really, I just love weird things, I think, so I think many of them are charming and endearing to me. Most of them are. These two met during the Otherworld tournament in the Ten of Swords event, and their challenge where they faced off against each other was to get married? If you like me love weird stuff, by the way, and if you haven't checked out Ten of Swords yet, you need to do that. It is so amazingly weird. You gotta read it, it's so good. Both Cypher and Bay did end up following through with this challenge, both gaining points for their team. And since then, this arranged marriage between the Krakoan mutant and a Rocco mutant has stuck. Hey, if it works, it works. Number 5. MAGIK and the Death Commandos. So this is less of a full-blown relationship and more of a weird tactical move of Magik's in combat, but it caught me so off guard and made me laugh so hard when I read it that I thought I needed to share it with you, so here we go. Also, anything that allows me to celebrate the awesome mutant series we have going on currently makes me really happy, so I'm happy to bring it to you. New Mutants being one of those series. Here, MAGIK and the team are facing off against Sybil and the Shi'ar Death Commandos, a group of hired muscle basically. At one point, MAGIK confronts the team of Death Commandos in issue number 5 of the newest New Mutants run, volume 4, that started in 2019. She asks them if any of them want to make out, and when they reveal that they either aren't interested or they're too busy working to accept her offer, she tells them they made the wrong choice. Apparently, if they had agreed, then MAGIK would have been cool defeating them with love, but in this case, they'll be dealing with MAGIK and her soul sword instead. Yeah, they definitely made a bad choice. And fortunately, none of them happen to be human, which means that MAGIK doesn't have to worry about not killing them as per Krakoa's rules. Some very bad news for the Death Commandos. Number 4. Angel and PSYLOCKE. These two had some super intense weirdness show up in their relationship, and it all went down when Angel as Archangel became the new Apocalypse. PSYLOCKE was his love at the time, and against her will he managed to brainwash her into becoming his bride, despite the fact that he was already with Pestilence, who was also his baby mama. He was like, I'm with you, Pestilence, but I feel like I need another bride, you know what I mean? All the brides gather round, says Angel. You might think, well, hey, that's pretty awful and weird, but guess what? It only gets weirder. PSYLOCKE was freed of Archangel's / New Apocalypse's control and attempted to appeal to him, to make him remember the goodness inside of him and revert him back to the hero he was. However, when this failed, she was forced to kill him. Angel, however, didn't die permanently though, but instead was resurrected into a new version of himself, becoming Angel once more. This new version of Angel was a complete refresh of the character, with all of Warren's past memories being lost to him, including the memories about him and PSYLOCKE being in a relationship. His appearance was also back to his original look, except for some reason he still had his techno-organic wings. Because I guess techno-organic wings are way cooler than organic wings, but you know what's not cool? His and PSYLOCKE's relationship, I suppose. Because they cut that part. Number 3. Mystique and Gambit. More of a moment in the comics than a full-blown couple, but still these two together were a weird time. Especially considering that Gambit is often seen as the true love of Rogue, and Mystique is, of course, Rogue's mother. Adoptive mother, but all the same. Already we got a super weird scene where a mutant student of Gambit's, known as Fox, approached him in the showers attempting to seduce him. Gambit manages, though it seems just barely, to resist her charms, and this is already awkward enough as this is a student-teacher relationship, so but it's made even weirder when we later learn that Mystique had actually infiltrated the Xavier school under the guise of Fox, who was never really a true student as this was just a disguise devised by Mystique. Mystique later claims to have done this in an attempt to protect her daughter against Gambit, whom she didn't think was good enough for her daughter, but I gotta be honest, trying to seduce your daughter's partner seems like a really weird way at attempting to protect them. No wonder Rogue is always getting mad at her adoptive mama Mystique for meddling. She's like, this is weird, Mystique, don't meddle this way. This is not a normal mom thing, stop it. Number 2. Nightcrawler and Amanda Sefton. So this is a weird one, because before Amanda Sefton was known as Amanda Sefton, she was Jemaine Zardos, the daughter of Nightcrawler, admittedly his adopted sister, as Nightcrawler of course was not born into the Zardos family, but was merely taken in and raised by them. But still, it's pretty weird, they're still siblings. Even weirder, Jemaine had apparently always been in love with her brother, but when he was accused of murdering their other brother, Stefan, Jemaine refused to accept that Kurt had done so in cold blood and sought him out to find out what was really going on. In truth, Kurt had actually killed Stefan, but only because Stefan had, at an earlier time, made Kurt promise to do so if he ever became too dangerous, which was what happened. Jemaine disguised herself as Amanda and did her best to make sure no one would recognize her, not even her brother Kurt, who grew up with her. This plan miraculously worked, and Amanda began to investigate and also date her brother. Oh my. What's going on? Number 1. Juggernaut and She-Hulk. Juggernaut isn't a mutant, and is usually more often thought of as an X-Men villain, but he has also teamed up with the X-Men from time to time, even sometimes seeing eye to eye with his stepbrother Charles Xavier, though usually that's not the case. She-Hulk, however, is not a member of the X-Men, nor has she ever been, and is not a mutant, but she is an acclaimed hero, which is one of the things that makes this relationship so weird. Well, that and the fact that it was a super random hookup. It all went down in Uncanny X-Men issue number 435 when She-Hulk was representing Juggernaut in the court of law. The ship was considered so abhorrent that years later, She-Hulk actually denied that it ever happened. In the 2005 She-Hulk series in issue 21, it was claimed that an alternate version of She-Hulk from Earth 721, who had been on vacation and impersonating her 616 counterpart, was actually the one who did the deed. And She-Hulk stands by that to this day. She's like, it wasn't me, it was an alternate version of me. I would never do that. But people are like, what's the real story, She-Hulk? What really happened? I believe her. I believe She-Hulk. She would admit to it if she did it. That's what I think.
Kicking off the list at number 10, we have Squirrel Girl and Wolverine. Dorian Green made her comic book debut in Marvel Superheroes Volume 2, Issue 8. See, back in the early 90s, she was born with these fantastic squirrel abilities, including a tail to complete the picture. In the New Avengers Volume 2, Issue 7, the two of them have a brief interaction that hints that they could have been romantically involved at one point. There's some tension in the air, that's for sure. They're talking about being professional and also how amazing they look too. That's already enough evidence in my mind, but to make things even more interesting, later on in Wolverine Volume 4, Issue 8, Dorian is seen in Wolverine's mindscape with Emma Frost, Mystique, Spiral, and Jewel. This was the sexual fantasies room, so I mean, proof's in the pudding, guys. Number 9, Crystal and Quicksilver. In Fantastic Four issue 45, Johnny Storm met Crystal, sister of Medusa, and they hit it off naturally. Johnny thought she was straight out of a fairy tale, and once they showed each other their powers, well, love. Love comes next, of course. The Fantastic Four needed a replacement temporarily while Sue was recovering from having their first child, so this Inhuman, Crystal, was looking to fill that spot. So Johnny and Crystal dated after this, and Crystal was front cover by time Fantastic Four issue 81 rolled around. And then in Avengers 104, after a battle with a Sentinel, Quicksilver gets hurt. So Crystal brought him back to her homeworld to heal him, and while they were there, the two of them ended up kind of falling in love. Everything happens fast in Pietro's life. If I was Johnny, I'd have a few choice words for him, that's for sure. And before we continue on with this list of weird superhero couples, if you want to go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, that would be awesome. It really does help us a lot, especially while we're working from home. Those thumbs up really add up and help us out. You guys are the best, thank you so much. Now let's get right back into this list. Enough of wasting time. Number 8, Toad and Husk. When Toad was amongst the lucky few to have kept their powers after the events of M-Day, he didn't save the world one day at a time. Instead, he became a janitor at the Jean Grey School for Higher Learning. He kept the school clean, he kept the kids on track. And then when the Phoenix Force approached Earth, Quentin Quire fell from the sky and Toad leaped far and wide to catch him. This impressed Husk quite a bit. So she quit the school thinking Kitty would just fire her anyways, and then she joined the Hellfire Academy later on, and she kinda made Toad betray the school once they started clicking. She's a little aggressive in her ways, some would say. Relationships have their ups and downs, but this is just another level. Because at the end of this 5-part roller coaster of emotions, Paige didn't even remember the entire thing. Poor Paige. And also poor Toad. I mean, he's gripping that mop tighter and tighter every day. All 5 parts are really fun. This relationship is nuts. I'd love to have Toad come and clean my place, just hang out, keep me in line, you know, he'd be nice. Number 7. Thor and Jane Foster. When it comes to Norse mythology, Thor's wife is Lady Sif, Now in the comics, it's a bit more complicated than that. They were on and off for a while, and I feel like we're gonna get a love triangle in the MCU soon. I mean, it's confirmed that Lady Sif and Jane Foster are both returning in Thor: Love and Thunder. So this could lead to a little triangle of romance, who knows? In Journey into Mystery issue 102, Thor had fallen in love with Lady Sif, so much so that when Sif had been kidnapped by storm giants and ended up as a prisoner of Hela, Thor volunteered as tribute. He actually wanted to trade lives, and Hela was so impressed, she was like, you know what, I'm just gonna let you both go. That's love. I don't know what to do here. And then in Thor issue 236, Sif sacrificed her own life in order to save Jane's. See, Jane in the comics became Thor, but her cancer got worse every time she got mighty and used the powers of Thor. So maybe the reality gem in the MCU has caused some life-altering effects to Jane, and then Lady Sif can somehow be the only one to save her at the end of Thor: Love and Thunder. Wouldn't that be sad? That would be sad, actually. Yeah, that'd be kind of pretty sad. I say this is a weird couple because the MCU has treaded lightly around it. Why Jane is the love interest at all beats me. I mean, the long distance alone, that would be enough for me to be like, nope, bye. Number 6. Kitty Pryde and Colossus. When people say age is just a number, that's like a couple years we're talking about. Maybe you're in your late 20s, you meet somebody in their early 30s. It's not that far off, but it sounds far off. That's what we're talking about when we say age is just a number. When it comes to Marvel romances, the whole age thing is a little gross. It's kind of gross. When the first two met in X-Men issue 129, she's said to be like 13 years old. They're trying to recruit her to go to Professor X's school, and Colossus is like 18 at the time, or somewhere around 20. He's like an adult. Now, in the Days of Future Past storyline, beginning in X-Men issue 141, we see Kitty and Colossus married in that future. So that's nice. I think. It's nice to know that they really are head over heels for each other. It kind of helps, especially when it started with their first kiss during a space mission, and right before they kiss, Kitty even says, gee, I wish I was older, and Colossus is like, so do I, and then proceeds to kiss her anyways. Number 5, Iron Man and Gamora. If you put 2008 Tony Stark in a room with Gamora, like pre-pepper pots, I guarantee you that guy would at least turn on the charm. The idea doesn't come out of nowhere though. I mean, Tony and Gamora, believe it or not, have hooked up before. So the panel starts with Gamora being all coy and cool. She says the line, well, you're gonna have to do much better out here. And Tony responds in his classic Tony Stark manner, I can do better. And then it immediately cuts to Tony laying next to her in bed. They look like they just had the time of their lives. Tony's all tucked in the blanket. He looks shell-shocked. Gamora's pretty chill about it. She's like, hey, I'm gonna go back to the bar. See ya. And then Tony's like, cool, true. And then after she leaves, Tony lets out the slightest, ow. Yeah, you don't say. It's probably gonna be a painful one. Number 4, Spider-Man and Black Cat. Peter Parker and Felicia Hardy, one of the more interesting relationships in Peter's life. Well, rather, Spider-Man's life. And there's a difference here between the two. You'll see. So she entered comics back in 1979 with Amazing Spider-Man issue 194. Now, when she met Spider-Man, they were, of course, both in costume. She fell for him, his charm, his quips. She could tell that he was a kind soul, and she trusted him. It was turning into quite the romance between the two, and eventually Peter felt like the time was right and revealed his true self. He unmasked himself. And she had a tough time accepting the fact that he was just an average kid under the mask. Should have left the mask on, Pete. Rough. I mean, looks really don't matter, but when you're a superhero, it's probably different. It's probably different. This is taken to the next level in the Ultimate Comics. When Black Cat finds out that Spider-Man's just a kid, she literally throws up all over him. So sometimes it's better to keep things a mystery, I think. Number 3, Wolverine and Lin Sun. This next one happens in the 4-parter Wolverine Manifest Destiny. So when Wolverine was in Chinatown, San Francisco, he saved a woman named Lin from the crime lord, the Black Dragon. Now she refers to him as her lover in issue 3. Things are cooking, nice. Now what Wolverine doesn't realize is that by successfully taking out the Black Dragon, which he did, Logan now has to take that spot. He becomes that role. So naturally he refused, but by refusing, that upset Lin. To quit would be dishonorable to everybody. So while he was leaving, she stabbed him in the eye with a spear, warning him not to return. So when the X-Men relocated to San Francisco, he took a trip down memory lane and returned, but this time Lin was not the same. Lin is dead, lover, she says. You killed her a long time ago. And she goes on to explain how now she is the Black Dragon, Queen of the Triads, Empress of the Chinatown Underworld. Wolverine took over as the new Black Dragon, and Lin escaped through the sewers, holding the same spearhead. Number 2, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. Of course I'm gonna mention this couple on this list. From the Ultimate Universe, this is one of the weirder ones. In the 3rd issue of the Ultimates, the Wasp is like, man, those two sure do love each other, those siblings. And then Cap's like, well, of course they do. They're family, they're siblings. Even in the first issue, like way back in the original X-Men, Pietro tells Toad to stop chewing so loudly in front of his sister. They're close. But in the third issue, the Wasp is like, dude, he loves her. Like, loves her. And then Captain America makes the same face that readers did at that point. Yeah, that's a weird one. Number 1, Wolverine and MJ. The Ultimate Universe has some interesting elements, as we just heard, and after Ultimate Spider-Man issue 66, it got even more weird when Wolverine and Spider-Man switched bodies. Mesmero switched their bodies, so Peter was like, hey man, I really need you to go to school. We've seen these Freaky Friday change-up style movies before. The whole fun is pretending to be the other person and trying to blend in with their lives. That's where the comedy comes from, right? This sounds like a hilarious adventure ready to happen, but while Wolverine was in Peter's body, he at one point ended up kissing Mary Jane. And it's made out like he even wants to date her, like he wants to go further after the kiss. MJ told him that she wants to wait until they're older for that kind of thing though, so thankfully, nothing happened during this change up. But the kiss and the idea in the first place, yuck, you know? Yuck. I was gonna save Hulk Gang for number 1, but creepy Wolverine takes the cake. Kicking off the list at number 10, we have She-Hulk and Thor. With the Eternals trailer dropping recently, this first couple might not be too far off in the MCU. It might just happen. When the final host of the Dark Celestials attacked Earth, Jen Walters was near where Eson the Searcher made landfall, and it telepathically called out to Jen for help. Now the Celestial gave Jen more gamma radiation after that, so she was stronger than ever at this point. Now cut to issue 8, she's a full-on savage. She's literally in savage mode, not just how the kids say savage. It's literally, she's a savage Hulk at this point. And by issue 11, she was pretty involved with Thor. Now it wasn't a great start to the relationship though, because Jen was actually fully convinced that Thor only desired her because of her newfound Hulk strength, and it wasn't actually Jen Walters that he was attracted to. Although he says otherwise, but it's a little sketchy. Number 9, Ultimate Hulk and his 39 girlfriends. The Ultimates are a pretty awesome time. In part 1 of this list, I mentioned Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch from the Ultimates, which was a little yuck, to say the least. The Ultimates are a little bit more risque, if you will. And in Ultimate Wolverine vs. Hulk, we see a side to the Hulk that's less angry and more, well, you probably can guess by the title that I said. Now it starts with Wolverine getting ripped into 2. He has to crawl himself back together. It's absolutely brutal. So Nick Fury has sent Logan to eliminate the Hulk, and so far it wasn't going as planned. Clearly. After receiving a stool sample, Wolverine was able to track the Hulk down. Oh, and yes, he stitched himself back together. That happened first. Don't worry about that. So once Wolverine catches up to him in Tibet, he hears loud thumps. Now look, I know this technically isn't a couple, but it's too amazing to leave out, so of course I had to include this. Wolverine opens the door to this hidden temple, and behold, it's Hulk and his 39 girlfriends, maybe even more. I don't know, I kind of lost count, not gonna lie. It looks kind of cozy though. It's a nice atmosphere, it's good. And before we continue on with this list, if you want to give us a thumbs up on these videos, that would be great, because it really does help the studio out quite a bit, especially while we're still working from home. You all are the best. Thank you so much for your support. Let's get right back into this weird hookup list. Number 8, Wolverine and AMIR. Wolverine has also been around the block too when it comes to hookups, okay? He's not getting out of this easy. Sometimes it's casual, like when Domino got involved with the Assassin's Guild and the Hand. She needed a way to get her mind off of these events, so friends with benefits with Wolverine sounded like the right thing to do, and it worked. They were both happy. It was great. But in Wolverine Volume 3, Issue 48, the friends with benefits thing hits a new low for Logan. Literally, he starts hooking up with an Atlantean for like 10 issues. She even says for Logan not to think about them hooking up in any romantic way, because Atlanteans don't have the same hang-ups that humans do when it comes to physical intimacy. Nice, okay. Logan says he wasn't really worried in the first place, he just happens to let out all his secrets because maybe, you know, he just feels like lately he has to tell someone. That's all. Logan's just a bit lonely. It happens. I'm pretty sure Logan just has a thing for Atlanteans. Don't lie, Logan. Number 7, Gwen Stacy and Norman Osborn. This one we couldn't leave out for part 2. I'm actually surprised that I didn't use it for part 1. Perhaps one of the more nightmare couples to hit the pages, the since past storyline begins in Amazing Spider-Man issue 509. And the main story is that Norman and Gwen, well, they had twins. It was revealed that before Gwen's death, the two of them had an affair. And the story is crazy. Spider-Man ends up fighting the twins, all the while he's having to deal with the fact that Gwen Stacy is dead. A lot of trauma in Spider-Man's pages. The amount of emotional baggage this poor kid must carry around. So Norman raised the kids, Gabriel and Sarah. And the thing is, they aged 3 times as fast as normal kids. So when I said Peter fought the kids, I didn't mean he's not going around boxing infants. No, these kids are older and they know how to fight. They're the mass vigilantes that actually attack Peter at the beginning when he's paying respects to Gwen in the first place. So he attacked him while he was visiting their mother. What a weird time. Apparently they were supposed to grow up to be this one big happy goblin family, which sounds like not a thing. That's not a thing. There's no such thing as a happy goblin family. So when Peter found this out, he was a little upset. Number 6, Black Panther and Monica Lynn. This one's pretty nuts. Okay, it just takes a turn out of nowhere. Oh my gosh, readers were just in shock with this one. So Monica Lynn first appeared in comics back in Avengers issue 73. She grew up in Georgia but moved to New York when she then met Black Panther and he saved her from the Sons of the Serpent. And in usual comic book fashion, they fell for each other and it was working out. It was actually a pretty good thing. It was great, so much so that Monica actually lived in Wakanda at one point. She was in the family. But then in Black Panther, Panther's Prey issue 4, he just calls off their engagement. Oh yeah, they were engaged, by the way. And then Black Panther's like, nope, no more. Just kidding. I don't know. I wasn't feeling it. No explanation, nothing. And then what makes this more even heartbreaking is that later on in Black Panther Volume 4, issue 16, Monica is seen again. This time she's performing. She's a great singer, and just like Adele, she is singing her heart out to a full crowd in Washington, D.C. She's killing it. She reflects through her lyrics on the heartbreak and the fact that Black Panther is now marrying Storm. Knew there was a reason behind his actions. Turning tragedy into art. That's commitment right there, folks. Number 5, Ant-Man and Beetle. In Ant-Man Last Days issue 1, we catch up with Scott Lang and he's at the club. He's just laying low. He's trying to get his dancing on. I don't know. He's trying to shake it off. He sees Beetle there, which is not good news because Beetle recently had fought Ant-Man back in New York. He's already in a bad mood. He said the club smelled like Axe body spray. He didn't want to be there in the first place. And now there's a villain there. He's like, all right, I gotta go report this to the authorities. Let's get this done. She thinks that he's stalking her at first, but it turns out they actually just live in the same neighborhood. So she explains to Scott that she's a rich, hot, half Dominican girl with ties to organized crime, and this is where she goes to party, so it's not a surprise that she's there. You know, it's a hoot and holler in time when the dude in the background's yelling, Flo Rida. That's how you know you're in a sick place. But she admits to Scott that she's attracted to the way that he fought back at Stark's place, you know, when she tried to kill Iron Man back when that happened. So they grab a drink and they chat about life and the Avengers and all that jazz. And then Scott reminds himself of something that Captain America told him. If you want to be an Avenger, you can't sleep with a supervillain. And the very next page, we can confirm that he did not follow that rule. Just a naked Scott Lang, just a dude with an APAC wearing an Ant-Man helmet. What a sight. What a sight to see. Number 4, Black Widow and Spider-Man. This one is... yeah, pretty weird. I'd say weird. In Marvel Team Up issue 82 titled No Way to Treat a Lady, the story begins with Nancy outside when a couple of punks try to steal her bag. Thankfully, Spider-Man comes in and saves the day. I mean, mostly. Nancy delivers the final blow, this time saving Spider-Man's back. So he sees the Black Widow suit in her bag, but she doesn't know what he's talking about. She doesn't think that she's Black Widow. She's convinced that she's this Nancy lady, although she very much is Black Widow. So Spider-Man offers her the suit in order to keep her warm, and then when she gets the outfit on, it of course fits perfectly. But again, this doesn't snap her out of it. She still believes that she's Nancy Rushman. And then in comes the SHIELD strike force with plans to shoot Black Widow. Not good. So Spider-Man gets grazed by a bullet during all this madness. And just then there's a moment where Nancy's body acts by itself almost, like a reflex. She lunges towards the strike force member and takes them down with ease. Confused how she did so still. So they end up sticking together for a bit, and then in issue 84, Nancy decides that they're close enough and she goes in for the kiss. She likes him, but in Spider-Man's words, it was the wrong feelings in the wrong place at the wrong time, and I couldn't agree more. So in issue 85, her memory finally comes back to her, and after saving the day, Black Widow confesses to Peter that Nancy and him had something special, but she is in fact not Nancy. Close, Pete. Pretty close. Number 3, Winter Soldier and Black Widow. Around the time of the Cold War in the Soviet Union, Natalia trained Bucky Barnes in the Red Room alongside other students. She and Bucky hit it off. I mean, they had a lot in common. The whole Russian brainwashing, assassin skills, Natalia working for the KGB, the whole super soldier thing, they had a lot in common. It was dark stuff, but still stuff they had in common nonetheless. They were great for each other during this time. They made each other feel like they were more than just assassins. They found love, the true meaning of life. Then they get brainwashed, sent on a mission, break some necks, come back, forget about it all, and then fall in love again. It was a nice circle. So without knowing it, they both had quite the history in comics. And in the MCU as well, Natasha says a line to Bucky after he escapes in Civil War. She says, "The least you can do is recognize me." Now, is this her about getting shot from the brainwashed Buck earlier in Iran? Or perhaps will we see a flashback to her training days with Buck back in her solo flick? More Bucky, let's do it. Number 2, Captain America and Sharon Carter. If we're talking about relationships in the MCU, then perhaps one of the most weird ones to come out of it is Sharon and Steve. See, Captain America was in love with Peggy Carter since he was a little guy back in the war. And then years and years later, when he's an established Avenger, she's much older and they're still in love. Even until she passes away, they're still in love. And then the next movie, the dude's making out with Sharon at the airport, just like that. Even the actor who played Peggy, Haley Atwell, said at Comic-Con that she's not a fan of the new couple. She says, "I just feel like I wouldn't want to date my great aunt's guy. It just feels like it crosses an incestuous boundary, and Peggy just died." Yep, you couldn't have said it any better. In the comics, when Cap first went on a mission to take Batroc the Leaper down, Sharon was by his side and the two hit it off then. She's actually one of the first people to learn about his alter ego, fun fact. Cap is honestly insane in the MCU. I mean, Peggy and then Sharon, and then time travel again, and then Peggy again. The dude, like, just swipe left. There's so many fish in the sea, just swipe left. There's so many apps. Number 1, She-Hulk and Tony Stark. This one we can find in She-Hulk issue 17, and it's pretty, she brings up a good point. So Tony at the time is a director of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Jen Walters at this point was an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. And it all started with a debriefing. Now, it might have been the most unprofessional debriefing of all time. There were no PowerPoints, there were no conference calls, there was nobody else really. It was just Tony saying that he wanted to talk to Jen alone. It's really unprofessional. Clay Quarterman's upset about this, but he's only upset because he feels like he should be the one in there, if anybody. Just totally missing the point. The next few pages, it cuts to Jen and Tony in bed, just like earlier with Ant-Man and Beetle. Jen brings up a pretty good point here. She asked Tony that why when he sleeps around, everybody calls him a player and he's like Mr. Cool Dude with sunglasses, but when she sleeps around, she's called much worse things. She says it's a double standard, and honestly, I have to agree. But right before Tony can even respond, they're called to action when the ship is attacked. Well guys, there you have it. Sometimes these relationships aren't meant to last, but that's fine because all these superheroes fall in love like so much more in the comics. It doesn't even matter. If you get your heart broken, there's like 17 other superheroes that you're gonna date because these things last forever. They change their mind a lot. That's pretty much most of it.